Hello, once again, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mary Therese Griffin, your host of Media Champions, coming to you from Atlanta, Georgia. Here on Daily Ad Brief, one of the shows we love to highlight, and it's my absolute honor and pleasure, is Media Champions. Today on the program, you are in luck because we've got Michael F. Schein with us. Michael F. Schein from MicroFame Media. Thanks for being on the program.
It is great to be here.
I love the fact that you talk about when people are new to you, right, and they want to put their brand out there, tell their story. You talk about how you turn consultants into celebrities, and that right there makes me go, wow, I want some of that.
Well, yeah, the story of what we do is really all in the name. It's a MicroFame Media. So in the old days, if you wanted to get well known, you really had to advertise all over the place, right? And you never quite knew who your ads were reaching. And in a business to business company like consulting, that might have been at trade shows, that might have been in trade magazines, but you had to sort of become, really blast the space with your message. And now in the age of the internet, you can really become micro famous. You can sort of find out who are the main players, where are the main places that people hang out in your space, and do a series of activities to really become famous in that space. So that's, we found that consultants above all people and executive coaches, they know that because they're selling ideas, their success is a function of how micro famous they are. And that became our niche from that point of view.
When you talk about MicroFame, and I apologize because I think I put an R in there in the beginning, and my eyes were getting ahead of myself, but it is MicroFame Media. Let's talk about the power of an influencer. I think oftentimes when people are telling their stories, and they want to get it out there, they're not quite sure how that works to have find attached to that influencer. How do you describe that to people who are all they know is they want to get their story out, but they're just not familiar with the way that this works today?
It's interesting because my other job is that I'm a writer, and I recently put out a book with McGraw-Hill called The Hype Handbook. And the concept is that there are these mass psychology principles that I call hype, which has often had a negative sort of connotation, but I think of it as something that can be channeled positively. And if you look at the really effective sort of attention getters in history, they all do things kind of the same way with different content. And one of the strategies I talk about is one that I call building a secret society. So now people talk a lot about online influencers, but this concept of a few people really being able to pull the strings and affect a lot of attention getting very quickly has been around a long time. If you look at a lot of the great promoters from ages past, they would always make it seem like their growth was happening on a sort of a grassroots level, but they were always nurturing relationships with prominent people behind the scenes and getting those people to advocate on their behalf so they could build a following and build attention very quickly. So, my whole thing is that marketing, when you talk about the idea of marketing, that's where you get in trouble, because then people start saying things like, gosh, how do I do influencer marketing on YouTube? Or how do I do A/B testing on landing pages? Or how do I use Instagram? But when you think about hype, you're thinking, what are those deep psychological principles that people have used forever to get lots of attention and get people emotional? And you'll find that that's one of them.
You probably remember this. You and I probably grew up around the same time. And this was before the invention of the internet, of course. But very simple, even without thinking, when President Reagan, remember, was shot and was recuperating in the hospital, and a reporter said, "So what are you doing with your time?" And he said, "I just read this book called The Hunt for Red October."
Yeah, right.
Look what happened there, right?
Yeah, Kennedy with James Bond, very similar. Yeah,
exactly. So yeah, you're spot on about that, and it's crucial to know someone like yourself who knows how to make that happen. And I wanted to ask you too, when somebody is wanting to go down this path, what do you suggest to them when it comes to media planning? Because you got to have a plan. And for folks that just know, I just want to tell my story, it's got to be more than that. And they should connect with someone like you. So how do you work them into this media plan?
You need a plan. However, you need a plan that can adapt very quickly. What I tell people is it's impossible to predict the future, right? So the best laid plans often go awry. At the same time, you know that there are certain mass psychology principles that work. So what I say is understand those deep principles and then have a system to conduct very quick experiments. So whether that's certain types of media, whether that's getting influencers like Ronald Reagan or the modern equivalent to share your ideas, run through those experiments with as little money and as little time as possible, and then ruthlessly eliminate the ones that don't work and accelerate the ones that do. And that's the best plan that I can recommend.
Hey, I think you're spot on there. And before we go, I want to talk about your podcast. I think it's awesome. What do you love most about your podcast?
So my podcast is now in the hands of another. So I was the co-creator of a podcast called Access, to Anyone. And my co-host was a gentleman named Michael Roderick, a good friend of mine. And the podcast still exists and it's doing very, very well, even better than when I was there because it's grown. And I'm very proud of the work Michael's done. But back to this thing called hype or branding or whatever you want to call it. My what I was becoming known for was sort of this benevolently mischievous brand, like that I would take strategies from some of these unconventional promoters. And our podcast was very kind of warm and cuddly. It was about forming relationships in this very positive way. And it was one of the hardest things for me to ever step away from, but I had to because the packaging wasn't consistent with everything else that through my experiments I had started doing. So the lesson in that is your packaging really does need to be consistent. Sometimes even if you like doing certain ventures and like doing certain things, if you're known for a certain thing and through your experimentation, you figured out how to make that happen, you have to be extremely consistent in how you're putting yourself across.
Oh, that's a perfect way to close this out. You hit it right there. You have to be consistent, and sometimes you need that reality check. You have to have that reality check. Thank you so much for being on the program. I so look forward to having you back on the show some more, and let's talk some more and deep dive into what you do and talk even more about influencers and how we can have people find that road to success by connecting with you.
I would absolutely love that. This was a whole lot of fun.
Oh, thank you. My pleasure. And for the rest of you, we're going to help you connect to Michael F. Schein. Very easy to do. Find it at dailyadbrief.com and make it a plan to come back and join us for more Media Champions. I'm your host, Mary Therese Griffin in Atlanta. Make it a great day.
Simplify presents Addressable CTV, combining the power of TV with the targeting and attribution of digital. Simplify's Addressable CTV delivers massive reach with the ability to scale without sacrificing precision. TV buyers can generate incremental reach with household-level targeting, frequency controls, reporting, and insights. To learn more about Simplify's Addressable CTV and what it can do for your clients, visit simply.fi.